Hello everybody. You can hear me. Weekend always, my setup always, something's wrong with it, so I have things to fix. But I think I'm all set. So let's get started. Yeah, so it was a long weekend. And I think what I was working on was the recurring templates, right? Yeah, so let me go ahead and continue to work on that. I know I'm late. I usually stream around 11 or 12, and so I know about an hour later than usual, but better late than never. I guess we can, give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that I was gonna try to look at the forums. I haven't looked at the forums in a long time. Wanted to see if there's any cool questions there. I'm looking for work, as many people are. I don't know why, but I feel like my microphone does not sound right. How about there? Hopefully that sounds better. Maybe there. Yeah, so now that that's fixed, I think. I have always looked up to this group for suggestions. Appreciate the help. I have a query regarding HTML. I created a journey log calculator using HTML. I want to replace the existing Excel file on SharePoint with this. I'm using modern SharePoint. Yep, that's correct. You can't do that. I remember, man, Mark is awesome. I know back in the day, I think he created like the first, what I guess we could call the equivalent to the first PnP.js. He created a library called SP Services, which is really cool. Anyway, yeah, SharePoint framework's the answer there. I guess he created a SharePoint framework. He wants to create a SharePoint framework calculator. I've always thought of creating a budgeting app for SharePoint, especially because you're dealing with projects in SharePoint. It'd be nice to have like an interactive way that you could plan your projects and have everything taken care of. Like what I mean by taken care of is, I mean, like you can have all of your entries in there, you can have all of your tasks, which kind of plays into my point task app. But it'd be really neat to have a scenario where not only can you plan the tasks, but you can also handle budgeting there as well. Anyway, something to think about. Migrating an old SharePoint site into a modern SharePoint site. The old site had an incoming links function to help users identify incoming links to a target document. The new site doesn't have this functionality. It needs to identify incoming links to target documents. What? I've never heard of this. Migrating an old SharePoint site to a modern SharePoint site. The old site had an incoming links function to help users identify incoming links to a target document. Does that mean you copy and paste a link into a document? The new site doesn't have this functionality. Docs will be loaded to a new site as Word docs. What can I use to identify incoming links to a target document? I have never heard of that. Any static links that are embedded into documents? In documents, list items what you have to be manually updated. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gotchas of a migration. The only reliable app out there that can help with this, which something companies in the top 10 Forbes list won't even invest in, is Link Fixer. Link Fixer? Link Fixer? I heard of like a little ring. Well, it's probably this link tech thing. I heard what something like what sounded like a chat, like somebody had written a chat. I used to have a way of seeing activity in that. For some reason I can't. Going back to what we were talking about, Link Fixer. I've never heard of this. Very interesting. Anyway, I mean, people aren't investing in it, so could say something there, huh? Anyway, busco alguna persona que maneje SharePoint. Que me sale este error, agradezco su apoyo. They're looking for a person that manages SharePoint. They're getting this error and they appreciate any support. It looks like it's loading. I'm gonna report it, looks like almost. All it's saying is, lo único que dice es error al intentar recuperar datos de la red. Error in trying to get, I don't know about get, but recuperar means like to restore. Datos meaning like data points from the web. Conexión no configurada para este origen de datos. Connection not configured for this origin of, or data origin. Error al intentar recuperar datos. It's just the exact same copy of this. It's just an error trying to, but you know, there's no, like this guy was saying, there's no context. I mean, it could be any number of things. So yeah, without context, not much we can do there. Yeah, this is an old post. I remember looking at this. It was, yeah, from April. All right, so nothing cool that we can help there with. We can close this. Let's close some stuff. Is this running? Yep. All right, so let's get to it. I was just killing some time, getting things going. All right, so manage tasks. What are we working on? I know that we have to do some code review on the last thing that was updated, which was recurring task form. And then we can do some testing. I'm not sure we did this or not, but perhaps we can do that. And then lastly, if we have time, recurring tasks UI. Oh shoot. Current task UI. And then we also need to address flow session bug. Oh, I'm just gonna take more than 15 minutes here, but I know it's not gonna take an hour. Let's go with 30 minutes. I see this. There's another bug I need to fix. I could have sworn I had fixed that already, but anyway, let's continue. So the recurring task, let's do some code review. So the task API was now updated to handle the parent ID of the recurring template. That's correct. App props is just adding the additional properties that we added to the recurring templates. Task form, I think day options, I'm fairly certain that we have this somewhere. I see we have it in settings. Yeah, but in settings it's just an array. And then in the settings form validation is there as well. How is it being used in the task form? Day options. Oh, this is for the array down here at the bottom. So what's happening is when I go to the form and we click on recurring, and if I select weekly, this is what's being generated. These, if we inspect it, let's take a look here. So in the task form, we have here. Dialog. Huh. Let's go back to the code. All right, so where is this being used? Task form. The options. Yeah, so it's mapping here the checkboxes, which essentially is those circles, the circle buttons. If we go to the elements, we have the recurring row, day checkbox buttons. You can see day checkbox row. I guess it's okay. Leave that there. All right, so we added the day options. Use app recurring task by current ID. I believe this returns a map of all of the recurring tasks. For the current user. If we look at the recurring task API, here we go. Here, get all the recurring tasks by user. But this is actually using the hook, use app recurring tasks. Which returns the task map, which is based on ID. But why? Oh, that's the API. Recurring task map. Where's this being used? Oh, okay. I'm just not I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding the whole concept behind this. Because if I go back, if I see code review as a recurring task, part of recurring tasks, and I say March 22nd, Monday through Friday, send that on a Friday. The recurring template, and it says loading template. And just keeps on saying loading template. Yeah, so recurring template shouldn't be just doing that. I'm sure there's an error in here. We look at the network. You can see here. ET recurring templates. Yo, PT estimated seconds does not exist. Why would there be PT estimated seconds on a recurring template? Makes no sense whatsoever. And it's completely normal for that error to occur. Recurring tasks? Is there something in recurring? I thought I had addressed this the last time. It was... There's no PT estimated seconds. Oh, it's under app props. Yeah, right here. And of course we have errors. Transform.tsf. Right. That was the error. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then you can... I don't know about that. Here it is. Why are you saying inherited? Category is also inherited from the template. I just don't... I know that I told it to inherit it, and you know, but I didn't mean to literally write inherit it in the control. Okay. All right, let's go get rid of that. We could probably add as a title. inherited from parent recurring task. Something like that. Categories is the same thing. Inherited from template. It's right here. This is appearing where here. Inherited from template. Right below. Here's the category. You can get rid of this. I just want to show the error message if there's an error message. And then this, inherited from template. You can just add as a title under category. Right. Link template. That way the user knows why it's read-only. Yep, see, inherited from template. Oh, we need to change that. Inherited from template. I'm wondering why this is bold like that. In the control. Link title text. Yeah, we turned it to 14, which I believe this is all set to 12. We ran out of time. Let's use the next task. That's so interesting. The last time I was streaming, that flow timer, it would reset every time that I would switch to a different task. Now it's not doing it, so I don't know that that bug still exists. We'll find out as we continue. New title text. Oh yeah. What were we talking about? We're talking about the size of the text here. I'm gonna get rid of this class. None of it is something that I need. And we can get rid of this. So let's do that. We're not creating unnecessary classes and styles. Let's switch over to this one. That's better, but I still don't understand why the control has a different height. There's a min height on linked title display. Right here. Get rid of this. Nice. Why is it the due date? Can you see the skewed due date? Does that have a minimum height? It's just a text input. I just realized this whole time I'm talking to myself. The link title display. Basically, I am not good at CSS, and I'm learning. I think I'm learning. I hope I'm not learning the incorrect way to do things, but shall see. That looks better. Okay, so that's working, looks good. Go back to the code and close this. All right, so unsubmit. Why would you do this like that? Build recurrent. What is build? What? You created another function? Okay, this is dumb. Let's see. Why would you do this, AI? What is so hard about if it is not recurring and it is not linked? That means you don't have a parent. Then all you do is you still pass the data to the save task on the try, but you just update the parent. But I just realized another issue with this whole concept of the recurring tasks. The only thing that I can think of is that, and that's probably going to happen, is that when a task gets set up to be recurring, if somebody else, like say for instance, you have a task called create or make coffee, and you have that set up Monday through Friday. And on one of those days that you were just didn't have enough sleep the day before, you just created a new task called making coffee for that day, and then you want to make that into another recurring task. How do we circumvent that? Like, do we have like some kind of catch that tells you, hey, you already have a task that's named that exact same thing? I definitely see that occurring. Okay, so this is okay. Now that makes sense. So what this function is doing is it's taking the task item and basically building the task item with the new, oh, it's returning the recurring template without the ID and the old data tag and the data ID, because it's creating a new task. So I get that. So that makes sense. But I don't know that I would have in the form. So that returns that object, which is the template data, and then it creates the recurring task in the table of recurring tasks. But this is not the way we do things, because we have use add recurring tasks. We have this helper here. So ideally, we want to have right here on line 63 or 60. Right here. We need to bring in the mutate recurring task. And we need to also I need the recurring tasks as well. And I'm talking to myself again. All right, so going to my design. Shoot. All right, so what I was saying is you have a task form and you have a recurring task form. When you fill out these forms, if you're editing something, there's an array of tasks. So this, let's just say this is an array. And this array is coming from our cache. So we have our cache from SWR. When you create a new task or a recurring task, there are API functions that are creating those items in the SharePoint list or table. Did I run out of time? No. But I do have to go here in a little bit. So they create the tasks on SharePoint on the list. This is where the list on SharePoint lives, right? So we use these API functions. This is what basically becomes our communication with SharePoint. So it gets sent to SharePoint, but we have data on hand, like the task title, the description, the due date, the notes. We have all that information. So what SWR does is we push that information into the cache, what we have. While the API functions finish their job, the SWR already has our data in the cache. Once the API functions are done and we have the identifiers for those items, the SWR updates the cache with the new ID. So I could set the temporary ID to 0. Once the API function completes a task, if it's the 5th task and the 5th ID, it's going to update that ID on the cache, thus eliminating us from having to repull all of the tasks. So if you had 1,000 tasks, we wouldn't have to repull them again. What I was mentioning before is if we look at the code here, on the submission, this creation isn't updating the cache. So typically what we do when we update the cache, we use these helper functions. So we would create, right, by using the create recurring task function, and this would update the add recurring task and then return the existing recurring task with the brand new recurring task. In the interim, we have an optimistic update that takes the recurring task data that you just passed to it and updates it. It updates the temporary cache for immediate consumption, meaning the user can see the changes immediately. That's why if I go to my application and I edit this, not that one, but this one that allows me to. So recurring task UI development, if I save it, you'll see how immediately it shows up. I mean, even before my dialog closes, you can see that update. However, that doesn't mean that the backend is updated. But the user doesn't know that. But what happens on the backend is SWR is saying, oh, I have that information on hand. Let me just update it real quick. And then whenever that update happens on the backend, I'll fetch whatever data I need from the backend and update that one object in the cache. But what I was saying is, if this code is running this way, nothing is updating the recurring task cache. So if I create a brand new recurring task, it gets put on the table, but there's nothing updating my cache. And for that reason, I was thinking that might be a bug later on when I work on creating the UI for the recurring task. But we can circumvent that if when the UI loads, it loads and checks to see if there's any new recurring task, but I have a feeling it will do that. Especially if we do like a lazy loading of that component, because we won't need it all the time. But yeah. Anyway, long story short, that's what's going through my brain right now. I just wanted to give you a visual representation of what's going on in my mind right now and what potential pitfall I might see with the application. But with that being said, I went a little bit over time. I gotta get going back to my regular scheduled tasks for my work, but I'll see you tomorrow. Sorry I was late today. If you are interested in watching this kind of stuff, or if you have any questions, I always have open ability to answer any questions on chat. Also look at the forums on social media to see if there's any questions in any way that I can help, so I'll address those things as well. But yeah, shameless plug here. If you can subscribe or follow me, I would really appreciate it. My biggest thing is just sharing as much as I can of what I know, and building some really cool stuff. But see you next time. Peace.